All right, welcome back. You're still watching Markets Today right here on Metropole TV. And with me in studio is Kevin Mulungu, who's a lead software developer at Mobile Sasa, and Joe Wanjara, who is a tech enthusiast. And they're just here to expound on what's going on and when it comes to matters Huawei, which is now the Huawei woes, as we have mentioned and we mentioned earlier. Very good evening to you, gentlemen.
Good evening to you.
Good evening, Kevin. All right, now, let's start off by doing a background check on Huawei's performance. Who is Huawei in the world of technology and to mobile consumers? Maybe I can start off with you, John.
Thank you so much for having me here. Well, Huawei is a world tech giant.
Yeah.
It is the second largest manufacturer of smartphones all over the world. It is also the largest provider of let me say telecoms equipment. This includes 4G and 5G equipment.
All right.
Yes.
Could you paint a different picture when it comes to Huawei?
Yeah, Huawei is a tech giant. They do business with the service providers. They sell phones. Like in the market in Kenya, they work hand in Safaricom. Yeah.
So their performance is quite up top.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, the US President Donald Trump has made an executive order restricting the Huawei from doing business with any US company without government approval. How did this come about, from where you sit, Kevin?
It was a shock to me. Yeah, because I just wake up in the morning and you find that there's some breaking news that Huawei have been banned. They've been added to the entity list. So, according to me, this is a trade war. Because when you see the history of Huawei, they're doing business well. Like for example, when Google banned them, if you read, you'll find that Huawei has been working in Google also. So they've been part of the development of Android, and I think this is unfair. And to me, it's just a trade war.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you also think it's unfair?
Yes, this is unfair, and as Kevin has said, I think this is this is part of the trade war, that US and China is having, because Huawei is one of the most profitable companies that China has ever had. So if US cripples Huawei, they're technically crippling China. So this is what's going on here. So let me say, in a few weeks' time, the president of China and US are supposed to meet.
No, the G20 summit.
Yes. So I think this came at this moment so that US can use this as leverage as they're having the trade talks. Yeah, this is one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that we've always known US as a tech giant when it comes to technology. But right now, China and their companies, they're up there. So US is afraid that if they don't do anything about this, Huawei in particular will become the largest provider of telecoms, and they'll have to work with them when it comes to building the infrastructure for 5G. And also, if you look at if you look at the phone market, Apple has always been doing good because Apple is from US.
Yeah.
But then Huawei has taken over the production, like the number of phones that iPhone produces is less than the ones that Huawei produces. So US is just afraid that if they don't do anything about this, Huawei will become one leader. Because Huawei has projected that by 2020 they're supposed to be the largest provider or manufacturer of smartphones.
Of smartphones.
Yes.
So this is just all about a trade war, and it's all about a political war from where you guys sit.
Yeah. So if I can add, if you read the news of what's really happening, you find that there's some missing links, because like US is saying that Huawei is a threat to national security, but for you to work, maybe if you are a company and want to work in another country, you have to be licensed. And upon the procedures is you have to be vetted. Yeah, so you find that Huawei was vetted to work in the US, but now they're now banning them. So you wonder what the cause. So my thoughts are that this is a trade war, and US want to according to Trump, they want to put America first. So they want to get away with non-American companies so that the market can be dominated by.
So they're striking every profitable company from China's end.
Yeah, especially the 3G, the 5G network.
All right.
Yeah, Huawei is the only leading one, and I think the one that has the technology right now. So
okay. Okay, so with that said, with whatever move the US president has pulled, what next for Huawei now? Can it manufacture a smartphone without partnering with the US companies?
Well, let's look at the hardware and the software part.
All right.
Huawei is known for 5 major things. We have their screen. They have a very good screen. Their camera. I think Huawei is currently the P30 is the best phone with the best camera out here. That's by Huawei. The other thing Huawei does good is the battery. Their OS is also good. The skin they put on top of Android, as well as their processor. So some of these things are provided by the US companies. Let's start with the screen, for instance. The screen protection that they use is called the Gorilla Glass. This is provided by Corning. Corning is a company in the US.
All right.
So now if they cut the ties, they won't have access to Corning, yeah? But luckily, there's another manufacturer of glass that is a competitor to Corning. This is a company in Japan. The glass is called the Dragon Tail glass. It's also just as good as Corning. So even if this trade war continues, Huawei still have a way of creating their own screen that is good. The panel, the panel that Huawei uses on the screen is made by Samsung and LG. Those are not US companies, so they're still safe. When you go to batteries, batteries are also made locally in China, so they also they don't have worries there. If you go to the camera sensors are made by Sunny Technologies. Sunny is a Chinese company, as well as Sony Technologies, that is from Japan. So not so much of a worry there. If you go to the processor, Huawei is one of the few companies that make their own processors. The processor is called the Kirin. They make it locally in China, so they have no problem there. The only place where they have a problem is with the OS, because the OS belongs to Google. But then Android is an open source project, so they can still have access to Android, and they can find a way to sideload these apps. Like for my case, I'm using a phone that I'm using a Huawei phone. Yeah, the Huawei phone came without these Google apps and the Google services, but it took me less than 5 minutes to sideload them. So they can decide to continue using Android, or they can decide to continue building their own operating system.
Are you in agreement, Kevin? Huawei can do without the American companies?
They can, but it will be very difficult. Yeah.
Expound on why.
Okay. First, you find that the way Google works, they own the Android operating system, and Android is updated frequently. So you'll find that Android version keep changing, like every year. So if Huawei will not run on the future upgrades, it means like the other manufacturers will be ahead of Huawei. Yeah, so Huawei will be affected business-wise. Yeah, because your partner, your competitor is using a higher version, and you are using a lower version, and then you are maintaining your own security. So just you doing the security, but when you are running on Android, you are provided the full Android support, the engineers. But I think this is also unfair to Huawei, because they have also been working on Android. Yeah, because they depend on Android, and their engineers have been working on the project also. Yeah, so I'm sure for like the way I know is that most engineers of Huawei are part of the Android development team. So even if they're kicked out, they know more about it. They can keep the security, but it'd be very difficult for them.
to move on
Yeah.
and to create their own final products.
Yeah.
Okay, now, I'd like us to digress a bit. Say China pulls the same move that the US has pulled when it comes to the iPhone, or rather the Apple users. What will display?
Pardon?
Say China pulls the same move that the US has pulled when it comes to Huawei and restricting them from doing business with any American company. Yes. Now China has a lot. The Apple or the iPhones are manufactured in China, and in China there are a lot of Apple users. So China pulls the same move that US has pulled. What happens? What do you see displaying?
Definitely, there will be a decrease in the market share of Apple, down to almost 30% of a decrease. This is because a lot of people in China actually use iPhones. China is a very integral market for Apple and iPhone survival. So if this happens, there will be a decrease in the market share of Apple. That's one. Two, there's one thing that is not being talked about so much. This is the rare earth material. These are materials that mostly is mined in China. And China mines up to 90% of the world rare earth minerals. Now these minerals are very key in building basically any electronic, whether your battery, your phone, your laptop, your TV, your computer, anything. So if China stops supplying these minerals to the US, iPhone will be affected in that they will not be able to produce as many iPhones as they've been producing, because they won't have enough of these materials. So that again will impact the decrease of iPhones.
Okay, so moving forward, how can China and the US better their relationship? Because I understand Huawei is going to even into a deeper loss because of if they happen to lose US as a partner when it comes to Huawei more than any other country. Yes. So moving forward, what would you suggest would be the best way to mend this relationship so that Huawei can get back to business?
I think there have to be a deal.
What type of deal?
Yeah, the two presidents are meeting soon, so I think from there is when they can come up, discuss, and come up with that deal, because both countries depend on each other. Yeah, not only China and the US are affected, but the whole world.
Yes, that's
like
very
here
true.
in Kenya, business are depending on Huawei, the same. So like you may find that people have shipped the electronics, but people are not buying because of the ban. So I think things will be stranded. So the best thing is for a deal.
It's for a deal.
Yeah.
Now, trickling it down to Kenya, and I was set to ask you this after my previous question. Safaricom works with Huawei, and they have a couple of deals. And when it comes to matters business, my question is, if Huawei, or rather Vodafone, does not get back to business as usual with Huawei, how does it trickle down to Safaricom, and how may it affect Safaricom as an entity?
Safaricom business will be affected because like where I stay, I use Safaricom fiber, but those routers are made by Huawei. Yeah, the same phones Safaricom are selling, they are being manufactured by Huawei. So you find if Vodafone, I think I've lost something from your question, but what I know is that Safaricom depend more on Huawei. If Huawei go down, Safaricom also goes down.
The business will be affected.
Yeah.
Okay. And say the G20 summit, as you've said, comes in, and then the president of China and the leader from the United States are able to come up with a deal, and they're able to settle their trade war squabbles. How soon will Huawei get back to normal? Because, you know, as we speak right now, their reputation is being ruined. So do you think business will be as usual with immediate effect?
Not with immediate effects. It will take time. because right now people are now skeptical of buying Huawei devices because of what has happened. But it's down to the consumer. At the end of the day, it's about the consumer. If you are aware that this is just happening because of the trade war and not because of Huawei itself as not a good enough company, then you'll accept this and you'll continue using Huawei devices like me. In some parts of the world, like in South Africa, there was a trending topic that Huawei forever. That has been trending the last week. So in South Africa,
iPhone.
Sorry?
Huawei iPhone trend.
Yes.
Yeah, they are comparing the two.
Yeah.
You find that top of their game, both of those companies.
Both of them are top of the game.
Yeah.
All right.
So people are starting to understand that this is just Trump being Trump, and it's not about Huawei not being good enough. But it will take time for them to build that trust again for the normal consumer. But for those who understand, they'll just continue buying Huawei devices.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence right here on Markets Today. My name is Nishvan. Thank you so much for keeping it Metropole TV. That's it for our show this evening. Don't go anywhere because I'll be back at 7 p.m. for our 7 p.m. bulletin.